Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here. How's everybody doing? That's what I like to hear. Rob Wise over there, looking sharp. Looking sharp. That lime green looks good on you. I love being able to come speak at events like this, and thank you all very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to get to share what I do and the journey that I've been on to get here. I was born in Baton Rouge. I think everybody in this room will get this joke, at the old women's hospital. Little too old to be born at the new one. Got to tell some people that, though. But after first grade, my dad got transferred to Houston, and so I was in Houston from second grade through high school. But I had a lot of family here, a lot of family friends here. Both of my parents went to LSU. That's actually where they met. And so I bled purple and gold my whole life, even growing up in the suburbs of Houston. And I knew I wanted to come back and be a Tiger. And so I came back as a young adult and fell in love with LSU and fell in love with Baton Rouge and have never wanted to leave. I've wanted to make a home here and do what I can to be a part of this community and to see it thrive. But I had no idea how I wanted to accomplish any of that back in my day. I got my actual first declared major at LSU was broadcast journalism, which is way closer to what I do now. But I immediately stopped studying that and ended up getting degrees in economics and political science with a minor in business. And then I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but academia sounded fun. So I enrolled in grad school and was in the political science program at LSU to get a master's, and then I thought I would go somewhere else to get a PhD. But after a year of that, I said, I don't want to be a politician or a political scientist for the rest of my life. I actually want nothing to do with politics. That's what grad school and political science taught me. But I finished the master's degree. I didn't want to waste that year of education, so I stayed for another year. Finished the master's degree, loved the extra football seasons at LSU because that was, after all, around 2007, which was one of the times that we won a national championship. 2003 I was an undergrad, and in 2007 I was in grad school, so I planned that strategically. So I finished grad school, and I knew I didn't want to do politics. I really still had not found my calling. What I really loved to do was throw tailgate parties for LSU football games, and you know, hang out with my friends and find a way to get by. School was really good to me, and so I ended up falling backwards into a job teaching high school math and coaching baseball at Lehigh. Now, this again was the old Lehigh, which is in the same place as the new Lehigh, but a completely different school. I was actually at that school the last 2 years that it was open as a math teacher and head baseball coach. Right after I started teaching, the guy that was the baseball coach left and took a job at a different school, and so they were just going to shut the baseball program down. And I went into the principal's office with 2 months of teaching high school math under my belt, Algebra 1 and financial math, and I said, hey, if you're going to just get rid of the baseball program, I'll coach it. If that's what you need as a coach, I'll coach it. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and he said, you don't even know what you're doing in the classroom yet? And I said, I don't know what I'm doing on the baseball field either, but I like baseball, and these kids need something to do after school. You know, sending them home and canceling the baseball program I thought was the wrong thing to do. And so he listened to me and named me head baseball coach, and then I got a buddy of mine that I was teaching with to be my assistant coach. And in 2 years, we were able to really work with a lot of kids and keep their grades up and keep them in the classroom and on the baseball field. And the second year, we actually won some games. But then they shut the school down. And so I decided that I was done with that part of my life. And I knew I didn't want to pursue a career in education the same way I didn't want to pursue a career in politics. But I still didn't know what I did want to do. I was just kind of crossing things off of what I didn't want to do. And so I ended up getting another job. I got a job working for the state of Louisiana, the Department of Health and Hospitals. I was doing grant writing and policy research for health information technology programs, and I knew nothing about healthcare, and I knew nothing about information technology, but I was writing grants on behalf of the state for those things. Yeah, and successful grants, I might add. what I realized is that what I was good at least to some degree, was writing. That I could do some creative writing. That if I really tried, that I enjoyed writing. And that's probably what got me through a lot of school as well. Even though I was a math teacher, some things don't add up here. But I was really bored at that job. I was bored. I would show up to work every day, and I would stare at a computer screen, and I would just kind of not want to be doing research on health information technology policies and trying to cure the state's woes of health information exchanges and electronic health records. And this was kind of all coming out of stuff that was post-Katrina and needing to be able to access health information online in case people had to move nursing homes or hospitals that closed down due to a lot of heavy stuff. So what I would usually do was like take a lunch break downtown and then go back to my office and sit at a computer and look like I was working, but really I would zone out and write about what I just ate for lunch, because that was more entertaining to me than anything else that I was doing. And so I would write about what I had for lunch, and then I would say, well, you know what, tomorrow I want to go to a different restaurant and eat something different, and then write about that. And then the next day I'm going to go to a different place. And before I knew it, I was eating everywhere that I could, especially downtown or anywhere around Baton Rouge, and I would go back to the office and I would write about the meal that I just ate, and I would post it online. And at first I was thinking that I was just keeping an online food journal about where I was eating around town, and then I realized that people were actually starting to read that, and that the thing that I was doing was called a blog, and that I had readers, and this was 2009, and I really didn't know what I was doing, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to think about and write about and learn and research food and chefs and things like that. It got me back into cooking. I kind of didn't cook a whole lot between after grad school when I was throwing tailgate parties and cooking at all those tailgate parties. That's where I really learned how to cook, was on grills and barbecue pits and big cast iron pots and outdoor deep fryers, throwing tailgate parties. But without the tailgate parties, I wasn't cooking nearly as much. But writing about food got me back into that as well, because I would eat something or I would research something or I would look at some nationality's food and I would say, I want to try to cook that. So I would go home and I would give it a whirl, and then I would write about that too. And so the blog that I was writing, called Bite and Booze, ended up really just being a chronicle of everything that I was eating and drinking, whether I cooked it or somebody else cooked it, and whether it was a local brewery or some whiskey that my brother had that I was taking a sip of, or whatever the case might be. I would write about it and blog about it. And then social media kind of got a hold. And again, this was 2009, 2010, and that world was just kind of blowing up. But a lot of people, it was just getting started. And so I was able to use Facebook and Twitter and then eventually Instagram and promote this blog that I was doing and really see it explode without knowing what I was getting into while still working a day job. By then I was not officially employed by the state anymore. I was employed by a nonprofit that was funded by the state to administer all those grants that I helped write that were successful. So I was still doing that, and I was really not focused on the day job. I was focused on growing the culinary brands. And I got a big break in 2010. I won the Tony Shastri's Tailgating Cook-Off representing LSU, beat all the other schools in the SEC. Thank you. And that was one of the first times that I did TV news appearances to promote that tailgating cook-off and things like that, and was on TV and really used the power of social media to push online votes and learned what I was doing, through that process. And then right after that, got cast on season 2 of MasterChef, which is one of the Gordon Ramsay show on Fox, where it's an amateur cooking competition. And so I was named one of the top 100 amateur chefs in America and flown out to Los Angeles to do this national reality TV show. And I was cooking for Gordon Ramsay, and I was making an herb roasted rack of venison and a Cajun shrimp and cornbread stuffed bell pepper. And I had an hour to cook, and it was one of the other contestants' birthday, and I was making a bourbon cream sauce to go with it. So once I had the bell pepper and the venison in the oven, I invited my other contestant to come up and take a shot of bourbon with me for his birthday. And all my stuff was in the oven. I was good. And so we take a shot of bourbon, and a producer on this huge like warehouse TV set out in Los Angeles, this producer comes running across the stage. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you just take a shot of that? And I'm thinking, man, did I sign something saying that I can't drink? Like, now if I cut my finger off, what's going to happen? You know, and she's like, did you just take a shot of that whiskey? And I said, yes. And she said, well, we didn't get it on camera. Can you do it again? So, of course, I said yes. So I do it again on camera. And then eventually my hour of cooking's up, and I go in there, and I plate my food in front of Gordon Ramsay, and he says something like, you look like a chef, and you talk like a chef. Let's hope you cook like a chef. And, I'm like, yeah, I hope I do. And I have no idea what I'm doing. The venison came out exactly how I wanted it to. The bell pepper, I really had no idea. This is where I messed up. So Gordon Ramsay comes up to the stuffed bell pepper, and he takes a knife and just like cuts it in half and gets some of the stuffing out of the middle and tastes it, and then just passes me a fork. And if you've ever watched any food TV, you know if the judge makes you taste your own food, that's not a good sign. So I take a fork and I taste it, and it was like no flavor at all. I forgot to season it while I was drinking whiskey, I guess. And so I say, it needs more salt, chef. And he said, it needs more everything. It's bland. The venison's cooked perfectly, but the bell pepper's bland. What a shame, what a shame. And he walked off, and that was about all of the interaction that I had with Gordon Ramsay. The other judges agreed, and I did not move on in the competition. And then months later, when the actual TV show aired, in episode 1 of season 2 of MasterChef, there is a clip of me going in there and talking to Gordon Ramsay, and him asking me about the bourbon, and he says, like, have you been drinking that while you were cooking? And I said, yeah, I had a couple shots, and that's what made national TV. So from that point on, I really embraced the bite and booze side of what I was doing. If I'm going to get famous somehow, it might as well be for drinking whiskey, I guess. But in the meantime, I had started my radio show here in Baton Rouge. Guaranteed Broadcasting switched the format of 107.3 FM to an all-talk FM station. And I got in touch with them immediately and said, hey, I want to do a food and drink show on that platform. And they got right back to me and said, this sounds awesome. We would love for somebody to do a food and drink show. And so I kind of took the blog and turned it into an hour-long radio show every week. And now it's a 2-hour-long radio show that airs twice every weekend, and that's been going on since 2011. Karen, you're on Saturdays as well still, Saturday style. So you can listen to both of us on Saturdays on Talk 107.3. The blog and the radio show and the social media and everything has kept going over time, but I've had to continue to figure out where it is that I want to go with everything else in my life. All that stuff was fun, but it was really kind of a hobby at that point. But by the end of 2011, I decided that I wanted to make it my full-time job. And I worked up the courage after a little while and doing a lot of analyzing and really kind of saying, can I make this, can I take this risk? Can I make this happen? Can I quit a nice paying day job where I'm going to sit at a computer every day and give that up to pursue this path that I'm really way more interested in and that I want to be doing. And it took me getting about 6 months worth of living expenses saved up, cheap living expenses, but I knew I could survive, and I knew I had 6 months to try to make something happen before I needed to go find another job. And at that point I was thinking, if I have to go find another job, maybe I'll go get another job in the food world and continue to grow and learn that side of life. But fortunately, I never had to. I quit my day job and in 2011 and never looked back and continued to grow everything that I was doing. Did a lot more video producing. Did a few other TV opportunities. the blog and the radio show continued to grow. I started cooking a lot more and doing pop-up dinners and private dinners. People would hire me as a private chef or to cook anniversary parties and birthday parties and things like that. And I still do a lot of those kind of private chef dinners where when people are looking for something like that. That's a lot of what I do. In addition to catering tailgate parties and things along those lines that I do as well. And so I was kind of putting that cooking skill set to use while keeping up with all the media stuff. And in 2014, I realized that I had too much going on for me to do it on my own, and I hired my first employee. That was Blair Loop. She's still with me today. She's my chief confusion coordinator and spin doctor. That's truly what's on her business card. And she's been with me since 2014 and has continued to see really kind of a rapid growth in everything that we have going on. That's when the product line launched. Beverly mentioned my Louisiana barbecue sauce. That launched around 4th of July 2014. And then not too far after that, Food Network Star came around. And Food Network Star is a TV show. Did anybody in here see that, the season that I was on it? Thank you. Quite a few of you. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I made it all the way in. Food Network Star is Food Network's large format reality competition. So it's 11 episodes long. It airs every summer. Guy Fieri got his break from winning season 2 of Food Network Star. I was on season 11, which was the summer of 2015. We filmed it early 2015 in Los Angeles, and then the summer of 2015 it aired. And I got all the way to the end, to the final episode. Was really never on the bottom or up for elimination the entire show. Got to cook a lot of really good food. I was very proud of the way that I represented myself and the city and the state of Louisiana, and got a few good LSU plugs in there and talking about tailgating and outdoor cooking, and that's really kind of what I was able to embody on that show. And I wish I would have won. I ended up finishing runner-up, but it was still a great platform for me and a great boost to everything that I had going on. While filming that, on one of the episodes, one of the challenges was to make, we had a food truck episode, and me and another guy did a burger truck. It was Arnold. Where's Cindy? Cindy knows Arnold really well. We were working together on a burger truck where we each had to make our own burger, but then we had to collaborate on a side. And so the side that we did was potato chips, but we each made our own dipping sauce for it. And so Arnold did like this very Asian Korean kimchi mayo with it, and we were using ketchup somewhere else, and I was doing kind of some barbecue stuff. And so I wanted to pick a different condiment, so I picked mustard, and I was like, well, how can I make like my mustard, like a Louisiana mustard? And so I used molasses and a little bit of, it was what they had at the time, it was Tabasco, and I mixed molasses and mustard and Tabasco together and just called it a molasses mustard. And Bobby Flay tasted it on that show and said, you should bottle this. And so I said, that's a good idea. I think I will. And so I already had the barbecue sauce out on the market. The barbecue sauce was done already, and so I was looking for the second product. I needed something to add if I'm going to have a product line. When I started the barbecue sauce, it was just let me start a barbecue sauce. But after that, it really kind of came. It got down to let me see what else I can do. And so that molasses mustard was Bobby Flay loved it. So I said let's go ahead and do that. And so by the end of 2015, I launched the Louisiana Molasses Mustard, and then actually in 2016, it won a Southern Living Food Award for one of the best food products made in the South, which was pretty awesome. And thank you. That product is all over the place. Actually, right when I leave here, I'm going to do a product demo with it at the grand opening of the Neighbors Federal Credit Union, grand reopening of the credit union branch in Denham Springs that closed from the flood last year. They're doing a grand reopening this afternoon or all day today, and I'm going to go out there and do some product demos and have the molasses mustard out there. But you can find it. It's in 120 stores around South Louisiana, all over Baton Rouge. Beverly's talking about gifts and stuff. Red Stick Spice Company here in Baton Rouge, which is right down Jefferson from here, does a really cool job putting gift baskets together, and they carry all my products. Calandro Supermarket has been the title sponsor of my radio show since I started that in 2011. They have also been one of the biggest supporters of all my products. But most of your other local supermarkets, Rouse's, Matherns, Bedar, Alexander's, Calvin's, they all have it as well. This Rouse's right here will indeed have it too. So anyway, enough about that. The barbecue rub came later. Those are really kind of the three flagship products. The barbecue rub launched around Memorial Day 2016. But the other two products that I have that are really important to me, let me check the time. Oh, I still got plenty of time. I am going to open it up for Q&A in a second. Beverly mentioned one of them, and that's the coffee. But the first one that came out, actually the second product that I launched in 2015, it was all in development when I was filming Food Network Star. And so then when I got back, before I could even announce that I was going to be on Food Network, I launched my wine. And that wine is a collaboration with Landry Vineyards, which is a vineyard and winery in West Monroe, Louisiana. There's actually an episode of Duck Dynasty called Willie Buys a Winery, where they make it look like Willie Robertson on Duck Dynasty buys a winery. He did not buy a winery, but they filmed that at Landry Vineyards in West Monroe, Louisiana. So they get a lot of tourists there thinking that like Willie bought that winery or something. It's still called Landry Vineyards. They didn't sell it. They just filmed the TV show there. But the main grape that they grow, so it's actually a Louisiana-grown grape, is called Blanc du Bois. Blanc du Bois means white of the woods, but it's actually named after a lady whose last name was Dubois. So the woods don't really have much to do with it other than that's the French translation. It was developed by, and feel free to boo this, some professors at the University of Florida. But it was a cross between golden muscat and then some Native American varieties of grapes, and it was developed to be Pierce disease resistant. And Pierce disease is a fungus that will kill off a lot of grape crops in more humid, lower altitude climates, and so that's why you don't see grapes like Chardonnay or Cabernet or Pinot Noir growing in climates other than on the coast where there's a nice breeze and elevation changes and things like that. They can survive there. Those grapes can't survive in these kind of climates, but a lot of research is going into grapes that can survive in this kind of climate. There's a lot of grapes being grown right now in the lower Appalachian foothills, in places like Missouri and places like the Texas Hill Country, which all have different climates than what we have here as well. But Blanc du Bois is one of those grapes that they have found grows extremely well as long as you can get a little bit drier soil. Like, it doesn't like the clay very much, but they've got some actual rolling hills on the west side of the Ouachita River in West Monroe, Louisiana, that have some nice hills with some sandy loam, and these grapes grow extremely well there. And so a lot of people, when you talk about Louisiana wine, they look at you like there is none, or like it's all muscadine wine and it's all super, super sweet, and that's all you're getting. It tastes like Welch's grape juice, but with booze, which maybe some people like that. But this grape actually does a phenomenal job making a dry white wine that's fruit forward, pear, peach, honeysuckle kind of flavors, refreshing, but nothing that's going to offend anybody, that's for sure, and nothing that's overly sweet. And so Landry Vineyards actually grows like 5 varieties of grapes, and they make 17 different types of wine. But the main grape that they're growing is this Blanc du Bois grape, and they wanted help promoting that grape. And so they got with me and said, Jay, let's collaborate on something. Let's do a Blanc du Bois that you help us with, that we craft to your style a little bit more, and we'll put your name on it and your label on it. And then when you go out and you speak and you do your thing and you talk about the wine, you're talking about Blanc du Bois. So clearly it worked. And that was 3 years ago. So that was the first harvest of my wine launched in 2015, and then we did it again in 2016, and then actually we just launched the third vintage of my wine here in 2017. It's always a year behind, so what we just launched now is grapes that were harvested about a year ago, and then we went through the winemaking process and the aging process and the bottling process, and so now we're launching that wine. But you can still find a fair amount of the 2015 vintage out there, and then the 2016 vintage is what's being released right now. But a lot of those same stores have that. And then the other project that I really love is the coffee that I work on. And Beverly mentioned that, and I won't go too in depth because you can go watch the TEDx LSU talk that I gave last year. But the project is really special to me because it's working with a really dear friend of mine named Caroline Payne, who I met in grad school for political science at LSU. She went on to get her PhD and is now a political science professor at Lycoming College in Pennsylvania. And one of the main things that she does is runs a program that takes undergraduate college students at Lycoming and brings them to the Dominican Republic to work with this one community on everything from quality of life issues like solar power and clean water to economic development and sustainable agriculture. But the main thing that this community does, pretty much their sole source of revenue, is coffee farming. And if they sell the coffee beans that they harvest without much care and attention and any quality initiatives and practices, no one else wants to buy them. They sell them to the Dominican coffee conglomerates that be, and they get 10 to 12 cents a pound for that coffee. Well, if they just put a little bit of farming practices and harvesting practices and techniques into it, and they can find a buyer for it, that coffee really, in the American specialty coffee market, those farmers can be getting in the $2 to $3 per pound range rather than 10 to 15 cents. And so what they're trying to do is in no way any type of a handout or anything, but trying to just get them to understand what they can do with that coffee and then how to get to that point and how to help them get there. And so they work with them on all sorts of initiatives to increase the quality of their beans while they're growing, and then through the harvesting practices, and then those quality of life issues for the farmers as well. And then they're able to buy the beans directly from a cooperative of all these farmers in this one part of the Dominican Republic and import those into the United States. So they give them a fair price for it. So last year was the first year that they actually brought in enough beans to roast. And they were roasting them for the college bookstore and things like that at Lycoming College, the little coffee shop on campus. But they had way more beans than what they were going through at Lycoming College. So Caroline was just telling me about this in conversation. I said, well, Caroline, what if I bought the rest of the beans from you, and I brought them to Baton Rouge, and I roasted them with a coffee roaster in Baton Rouge, and then put my label on it, but I'm helping you by buying the beans from at a fair price from the farmers. And then also I told her I would be able to give $1 of every bag of coffee that I sell back to Lycoming College to help the students travel there and work with the farmers in the Dominican Republic. And so it was this whole cycle. And so we were able to do that last year, and then this year step it up a big notch because I was able to actually go in June to the Dominican Republic and meet the coffee farmers and actually be there and work with them. And then we were able to really place an order. So this year I got 660 pounds of green Dominican coffee beans brought into Baton Rouge, and I partner with Cafecito Coffee Roasters, which is also here in Baton Rouge in a little industrial park off of Airline, and they're roasting the coffee for me, and we bag it up and we put it out there in the stores. So a fair amount of stores have that. We do a lot of online sales and farmers market sales with that as well. And then we just started actually grinding some of it up and putting it in a coffee barbecue rub that's really exciting as well. So we're doing a lot with it, but it really kind of all goes back to helping that community in the Dominican Republic and being able to work with them. It works for coffee because we can't grow coffee in Louisiana. Would have thought you can't grow grapes in Louisiana either, but I found some of those. So if anybody finds some coffee growing in Louisiana, let me know. But being able to work with that community in the Dominican Republic and then bring those beans here and roast them in Baton Rouge certainly is awesome for me. All right. Anybody have any questions? I've got to be respectful of time here. I know we don't have too much left, 5 minutes or so. Sir. My favorite go-to bourbon. That's a good one. So Calandros is doing their rare whiskey raffle pretty soon. That's December 14th at the Perkins and Segan store, and they're going to have a few bottles of Pappy Van Winkle there. But that's not necessarily my everyday go-to bourbon. Michter's I really like. I'm a pretty big fan of Booker's and Basil Hayden, which are Jim Beam's small batch collection. Knob Creek's a good go-to. If I'm mixing, I'm cool with Maker's Mark or anything, really. Black Forest Hill is a great one. I've had it, not much of it. Yeah, that's one of those rare ones as well. Good question. So I do not actually work with the LSU Food Incubator at all. I started my barbecue sauce before the LSU Food Incubator was a thing. Gay Sandos, who's the lady that runs the LSU Food Incubator, was at a place called Edible Enterprises in Norco, Louisiana, that was a similar kind of a food incubator thing, and I went and spoke with her a few times about making my barbecue sauce there, and at some point she kind of hinted to me that she was going to be leaving there to take that job at LSU, and then if I could wait, then I could do it at LSU and in the LSU Food Incubator. And so I kind of waited, and then all that transition happened, but then it was taking a while for LSU's incubator to get up and running, and I was ready to launch my product, and I found a co-packer. So I use the Panola Pepper Company that's in Lake Providence, Louisiana, and I met them while traveling the state filming stuff for Louisiana Culinary Trails and all that kind of stuff, and they were awesome people, and they have this production facility there, and their whole goal is to put people in Lake Providence to work and have people in that facility making sauces and bottling sauces and labeling bottles, and so they were excited to work with me, and so I was able to make that happen. So the mustard and the barbecue sauce are both made at Panola Pepper Company in Lake Providence, Louisiana. Yes, sir. Oh, good question, yeah. How could I forget? Yeah, my first restaurant's going to be opening up sometime early 2018. We're not exactly sure. We're waiting on a huge development called Square 46 on Government Street. If anybody knows where the old Giamenco's restaurant used to be, it's that plot of land on Government right in the heart of Mid-City between Acadian and Foster. There's a large 3-story development going up that's taking the entire city block. Half of the downstairs of that is going to be a modern food hall called White Star Market. White Star Market is going to have 10 different food vendors inside of it that kind of all share one big commissary kitchen in the back, and then they have their booths inside that food hall. So it's kind of like a really gourmet, chef-driven food court. Government Taco is going to be my taco shop inside of White Star Market. That's a part of inside Square 46. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that's out of my hands, and we're just waiting on construction for the entire development and then the market, and then I can open my taco shop in the market. But that's all coming soon. As I drive down Government, I kind of see it progressing, I guess is the way to pronounce that word, progressing. It's getting there. Sometime early 2018. But Government Taco is going to be a really cool taco shop. We're doing a lot of crazy stuff. There's going to be some tacos for everybody. We're going to do some vegetarian stuff, some Louisiana seafood tacos, some pork, beef, chicken, but it's all going to be kind of out there. Like our chicken taco is a pimento mac and cheese, smoked chicken thigh, Nashville hot chicken skin, Alabama white barbecue sauce taco. So it's not just like chicken and a tortilla, you know. It's a big step up from that. I've got a really good team working with me. Chef Amy Tortorich, who's in this current issue of 225 magazine that just came out for December, has a little profile in there. She's going to be the commander and chef for Government Taco. See, let me backtrack a little bit. Government Taco, right? It's on Government Street, of course. Baton Rouge is the capital city. That's great. Also, this is me finally putting my degrees in political science to use. Yeah. Doing something we can all agree on, which is tacos. Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. So thank you for saying that. I did lose like 30 pounds or so back in like May and June because I was hitting the new Iron Tribe gym that's in Mid-City. It's on Acadian. I was working out there often then and gotten a good routine, and then I started traveling internationally, some to the Dominican Republic, and then some stints in D.C. and New York and all over the place, and I haven't been able to get back into a routine, but I actually went this morning for the first time in like 3 weeks. And I'm hoping, since I'm actually in town for all of the holidays, and then once we get into the beginning of next year, I'm in town because I'm opening a taco shop. So I'm hoping I can get back into it a little bit more regularly and drop a few more pounds. The diet part is always the hardest part for me. I eat and drink for a living, and so if you think it's hard just living in South Louisiana, try eating and drinking for a living in South Louisiana. This is why I could never live in New Orleans. I would die. But yeah, I mean, certainly part of it is trying to make healthier decisions and healthier lifestyle choices. You know, a few less beers here or there, and a few less times of eating fried chicken when I can avoid it. Those are some of my favorite things in life. So.
Can you put that on the menu?
Yes, always. Cindy, I think last one.
All right. What's the most unusual food you've ever eaten?
The most unusual food I've ever eaten. When I was living in Texas, my dad is still a big deer hunter, and we did a lot of South Texas deer hunting, and I ate quite a bit of rattlesnake. And I still love rattlesnake. I had rattlesnake in the freezer, and we brought it and cooked it at LSU tailgate parties, just on the grill, like whole, so you can still see it's a snake. It's even better that way. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned.